And that's why I love the office, because I get to play the game every day. If I'm a work from home and I've got a generation who works from home, I don't know how to play the game. I'm not in it.
You know, they're a bit weak in some areas and we think that we're going to take that challenge on. It gives us a good indication of where we really need to hone in.
Your self-belief in yourself is too low and I need you to have a crack at this.
The leadership team, Tom and myself, and he said, okay, terrific, here are your values, that's great. Now don't tell anybody about it.
Starting point, I think as difficult as the conversation it is for you, just think about how it lands for them. Think about where they're at.
You know, one I say to people a lot is I say you can be on the right track. If you sit down, the train will run you over.
It comes back to the behaviours that you want, and the behaviours are influenced heavily by the values that you have.
You know, they're the master of their own domain. I'll just take what they say and try and form some good company decisions.
And it's a recipe for success. Yeah. And some of the poorer decisions I've made around people have been not taking into account what do they actually need.
Welcome to Slicing Through the Noise, a leader's story. The podcast that uncovers real stories behind impactful leadership. Join us as we explore how leaders cut through the chaos, master powerful listening, and build cultures of accountability and vision. Whether you're a seasonal executive or an emerging leader, this is your space to learn, grow, and lead with integrity. Let's slice through the noise together. Welcome to Slicing Through the Noise, a leader's story, the podcast where real stories about real people with real struggles in their life as leaders. Join us as we explore what it takes as a leader to slice through the noise, to cut to the chase through the chaos, and to learn to grow and develop people around you, to learn to listen, hold people accountable, and make the difference in the world that you want to make in your business. Whether you are a seasoned executive or an emerging leader, this is the space for you to learn, grow, and experiment with what are the things that work and don't work. So welcome to Slicing Through the Noise. Our guest today is Craig Patterson, and has he got a story for you? And we'll talk about how from a farm taking on work to supplement the farm income into a $100 million business with over 150 employees. How did he do that? And what does it take to make that happen? So welcome, Craig.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hey, I was reminiscing yesterday. I went to have a look at some of the photos of our trip to Antarctica and where I met you, and I thought of some of the weird things that happened on that trip and some of the lessons that I learned about how people behave, what they do, especially when a group of entrepreneurs get together and the egos are running the show. And I just loved when we met and we were walking up to the aeroplane as we were leaving Antarctica, and you connected with me, and it was like, wow, this is one of the real people here. And over the years, there has been a tremendous, insightfulness for me. I've listened to you talk about what it took to grow Central Earth Moving, what it looks like to actually have Centrals be a success, and the wonder, pain, and joy of growing a business.
Well, it was interesting because Antarctica was actually for me to get away to make a decision and have some quiet. And I think it was interesting speaking to you, Jennifer, because I remember the first conversation was that I was a very interesting cricket, I think was the word. And I thought, wow, okay.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things I thought of.
Yeah.
I was very interesting.
Well, I think it was, like having spent that time with you, it was like you didn't fit the mould of that group of people. And you certainly already had under your belt decades of experience and the capacity to think about what it takes.
Oh, and I probably left an impression by calling bullshit on some of the stuff that was happening.
Absolutely. And I think that that's what drew me to you at the time. It's like one of the things that I notice about you, you do have a really good bullshit meter. It's almost like you've got a radar up like this that says, well, I don't know about that. So let's just start from the beginning. Like your family owned a farm and you had farm machinery, and it was in 1978. It was tough on that farm, and you started creating some off-farm income. Yeah. So tell us about that story. How did that all happen?
Well, it's down to my parents because my father came from a mining background. They moved onto a family farm that was already run down. So we got our equipment off salvage yards, which is a nice way of saying rubbish tips. And what we'd done is had to clear land and improve the farm. And we'd just reached the stage where we could afford a new tractor, and that was the first buy. And then it stopped raining, and we were going out backwards. And there was 5 years of drought. The second year, my parents used the last of the overdraft and borrowed money off my father's brother and bought a bulldozer. And I remember my father went into shock. He couldn't even go and look at it he just did it impulsively, and he wasn't an impulsive person. But that really then it came with a contract. So it just became a cash flow, a survival mechanism. So we would then have holidays where there was a job, hopefully on the coast. And my father would drive the bulldozer in the morning, and I'd drive it in the afternoon. And it's pretty rare now. Well, you'd never see someone that's 14 or 15 on a bulldozer on a mine site, but that's what we did.
Yeah.
And it really just sort of commenced there. It was fairly closely linked to the farming enterprise. A lot of our clients were farmers. Of course, then we realised that when it started growing, if there was a bad season, then there was no work. So that sort of convinced us to relocate to a regional centre. And so that's sort of where the growth really started to happen. And eventually we sold the farm.
Yeah.
So
it's like that's an extraordinary story of your father taking a risk, going into shock. What the heck have I done?
Yeah.
So an early baptism by fire for yourself when at 22, you've come off the tools, you're in a remote location and you've got 15 guys that report to you. Tell me some of the things that you learned about what it took to lead other people in a supervisory position when you were pretty young.
Well, I think you come as a boss's son, so you come with a big label as being incompetent and there just because of who you're related to. So that's the first thing you've got to overcome. For me, I had some understanding of driving bulldozers, but leading people and constructing, it really was reliant on asking questions and listening to people. And I suppose what I found was there's always genuinely good people that want to help you. Mm. You've got to listen to them and understand what's going on. And I think you would need to recognise them, but ultimately you'll get different opinions. So you need to make the decisions that make best sense to you and take responsibility for them, and to be able to communicate to others why you're going down that track, but leave yourself, I'm going to try this first.
Yeah.
We're going to give this a go. If it doesn't work, that's what we're going to do next. And I suppose early on, I sort of had a theory that you can't steer a boat sitting still. So I was more than happy to give something a go if it wasn't working, just change direction. I suppose I sort of learnt later that you've also got to be talking to people behind you because you can see the change in direction. Others need to understand why too.
Yeah. So, like, you did that, and then you do your baptism by fire. Then you succession plan, and you take over ownership eventually of the business. And tell us about, now that you've successfully had over 30 years at the helm, and grown this business. What are some of the things that you would say to other family-owned businesses about planning succession?
Succession is incredibly hard. It requires a lot of communication and a lot of understanding. It needs a lot of input from all parties and some very good listening as to what everyone's needs are. And I would highly recommend having an independent party along. We didn't have any of that.
Right.
So I was very, very close to my father, and both my parents were all involved in the business. And, we have a joke that there was a golden child in our family. I was at that stage the golden child. I was the one that was held up as the example. We were all very, very closely linked to the business. So my father had 5 bypasses and stopped working and realised that he didn't have any superannuation or anything to allow him to retire. So for the first 5 years after that, I was just heavily involved in both building the business but also diverting money into setting up my parents so they could retire. I suppose my father said, you'll never realise until you reach this age, and now I've reached that age, I realise that the next question becomes how much is enough and what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
And there's all those questions from someone that's in the senior. I can recall strongly that I wanted to have a go at doing it my way. And so you have that real interaction.
Yeah.
That's very hard to navigate. And it was really hard for us. And it did damage to a really strong relationship with my father that probably never was able to be repaired, which is those things you want to protect. And that's the key things, is to get a plan documented that everyone agrees and signs off and your siblings understand as well. Because I think that's really, I had heard other people say the hardest thing a family do is succession, and I thought not for us. It was the hardest thing we did.
Yeah. So it's about the maintenance of that open communication. And I think one of the hardest things in most small businesses or family-owned businesses is that most times the founder doesn't have superannuation. They took all their money and sunk it into the business. And at some point, succession needs to be about what you did, is set your parents up so that they can financially survive. And it's a really big thing.
Yeah, and the question for all of us is how much is enough?
Yes.
And, everyone's got a different impression and need, and so that's a very hard question to answer.
Yeah, it is a huge one because it's a common story that I've heard, because we've worked so much with family-owned businesses, is the whole succession planning. And I really like your piece of advice, is get someone who will talk to you about it and set it up so that you do it well and you maintain relationship through it. And obviously, whoever the next generation is, letting go as the owner is the biggest thing. Going, okay, what are they great at? What am I not that great at?
Yeah. And I just in my network, the amount of families that don't talk to each other because of this process.
Yes.
And, you sort of look back and you think, how could that have got to that? But without some good personalities in our families, it could have got to that.
Yeah. So you maintained it and you kept a semblance of, no, this is what's important. I'll take care of my parents and make sure that they're okay. So let's talk about scaling through relationships and advice. So one of the things that you've been able to do is to seek outside guidance and support. And you credit a lot of your mentors and external advisors for navigating some of your critical growth periods. What would you say, if you're talking to other business owners, talk about how did you know that was important?
Well, I find growth was never a straight line. It sort of was steps. Yeah. So you would come to a step and it was like there was a giant lackey attached to you. The more you tried to expand and grow, your profitability dropped. So it just drew you back to that point. And it was a frustration as to what is stopping me being able to go to the next step, because I can see the opportunity but I can't take it. Yeah. And what do I need to do? And what I did find is it was critical along the way for people to help me understand how I got up to the next step. And that took some growth in myself. And I often say to people, the thing that stopped the growth of our business was me. I had to learn first. And I had to work out how it needed to be done and how I needed to change what I was doing to enable the business to be able to grow. And so there is specialised people along the way that can help you with that. What I have found is, like everything, people have specialist skills and you really need to seek out what your needs are at that point. And to do what you would do with anything is to invest first in ensuring you get the right systems, the right approaches in place before you put your foot on the accelerator, because the risks are too great if you get it wrong. You will come flying backwards. So for me, the question has always been why, and understanding why I have to do it a different way. Why won't my way work? Yeah. And once I understood that, it made perfect sense. It became a no-brainer that that's what needed to happen.
It's a tough one when you're bouncing. It's almost like I think of business as you come along like this, you've done all this growing and then you hit the wall and the next step's there and you're bouncing up and down going, why the heck can't I get over this?
The analogy I look at with business is what people say about investing in the share market. Shares go up the stairs and come out and go down out the window. Yeah. It's the same if you get it wrong. You slowly grow in steps, a business. If you get it wrong and it gets out of whack, it can drop like a stone being dropped out of a window. That's been my experience.
Yeah. So tell us some of the things that you didn't act on. So share with some of our listeners, like some of the things that you knew, didn't act on and then paid for later. We don't need the whole lot.
I say to people, don't be worried about making a mistake, because even if you try your hardest, you'll never make as many as I've made. I think, the analogy, make your mistakes quickly and move on and learn the lessons, don't repeat them. But there's been so many numerous. I suppose the first things for me is gathering data but not information. So having very good information to make decisions on is critical, and having the right financial reports to enable you. So most decisions should be no-brainers if you've got the right information. The right financial information from people that look forward and not where you've come from, but where you're trying to go and what you need to do. Yeah. I think with that, that's a critical need. because I came from hands-on, I was very involved initially in trying to tell people how to do things and thinking I was helping by getting things started and, making the calls and setting up the connections. Totally unaware I was putting my fingerprints over everything. So if it didn't work, it was my fault. There was a get out of jail. So being able to delegate and then hold people accountable was a critical important. I really get enthusiastic with people that are involved. I really believe in people, throw myself into it. Unfortunately, then I get disappointed when something doesn't happen. And I suppose I grew fairly tall when I was young.
Yeah.
And so, some people thought I was stupid, jughead, So I have, if someone wants to think I'm stupid, go for it. I'll play as dumb as you like.
That's a really stupid move to make on their part.
And I suppose my other error is I sort of watch a lot.
Yes.
And I watch what people are doing. You can make a mistake of building a picture. So I was like Mr. Squiggle, I'd get the points and I'd say, there's the picture.
Yeah.
And there's what they're doing. And I'd say, here, I've made you this lovely rope necklace, put it on, try it out for size. And then I'd go whack, you thought I was stupid.
Yeah.
Wasn't a good action because people would see me as a nice guy and then think, where the hell did that come from? So I'd sort of build it up. So communicating early.
Okay, so that's that whole thing about when you lead, communicating and holding people to account on the small things they miss in the beginning means you don't make your rope necklace.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty real. I think a lot of leaders make rope necklaces. I'm going to use that one. I'm going to say to someone, are you making a rope necklace?
I was a bit famous for when I'd had enough. I'd tolerate things for a long time, but when I'd had enough and felt people weren't doing the right thing, then there was a line put on the ground that no one saw but me, and I never went beyond that line.
Yeah.
So they got a bit of a surprise when they stepped over.
Much better that they have little moments along the way.
Yeah, there's a bit of a warning. There's an alarm goes off.
Like, hello, no.
Yeah.
I just thought you wanted to know this. Like, I'm no idiot.
Yeah.
I'm watching you. Yeah. It is really difficult. Like building a business in regional Western Australia. I mean, like this is the part of the world where there's hundreds of kilometres between towns and centres, right? So, and you got a lot of repeat business over the years. And this kind of business, because of distance and all of that stuff, hinges on trust. Yeah. And how do you cultivate those long-term relationships and client partnerships? Because I know you talk a lot about partnerships. You have a partnership with your client and you're there to make things easier for them. What do you think makes that? What have you done that made that work?
I suppose I've been asked advice in different forums, and I say to people, business is about trust.
Yeah.
And trust is built on relationships, and relationships are built on conversations that you have. It's the most valuable thing you have.
Yes.
And I have mentored our young people to say, that's your brand.
Yeah.
That's what you're about. If what you're comfortable with, if you're being asked to do something that you're not comfortable with, that's your brand you're putting at risk. And it takes years and years and years to get back one silly error that you make. That doesn't mean that you don't make errors. It means own them. Yes. Say I stuffed up, apologise. I think that builds trust.
Yeah.
And that is the most valuable thing we have. Is that ability for people to get an honest answer and a care that we're going to do the right thing, that we will own it, that they know that if something's not happening, at least they can pick up the phone and talk to someone and get some action. And
what happens to you, though, as a leader when people don't want to own their mistakes?
Well, I suppose it's a family business, so I identified that what we do is a lot about who I am. Yeah. So it does burn internally when we do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And when you've got a lot of people, there's a lot of moving parts, and so I think you can't reasonably assume that everything every time of the day is going to be exactly the same. But in regional communities, it's how they conduct themselves after hours as well, because you never know that the lady cooking the food in the cafe is the daughter of the people you're working for. It's that close. And the one thing in regional communities is word of mouth goes around far quicker. So your reputation often arrives before you do. So there's already people assessing how you're going to treat them. And the value of those relationships in regional areas can't be underestimated. It is can you be trusted?
Yeah. So that leads me into some of the extraordinary relationships that you've built with Aboriginal engagement and joint ventures with them. So you formed joint ventures with these people. Can you talk about that? Because I think a lot of people pay a lot of lip service to wanting that, and yet yours has been extraordinarily successful with Aboriginal people. And what made it work?
I suppose I was very fortunate that I shared a house with an Aboriginal person to come down and play football. So it was that environment where my beliefs got tested as to what I thought was reality growing up in a regional area. And I suppose I came from an area that was probably full of good quality rednecks. So it was a surprise to be with an Aboriginal person and hearing a completely different perspective on that same community and how it operated. And you talk about my bullshit meter. I suppose I even had to question with my own family perceptions. Yes. How can skin colour make a difference? You've got different coloured eyes than I've got. Why isn't that what we differentiate on? Why is that not a difference? Skin colour is just a better suntan. I suppose I was fortunate that opening of my eyes meant that when I went to Geraldton, I was prepared to give people an opportunity. I was effectively colourblind. If you want an opportunity, I'll give you an opportunity. I suppose what that understood was what everyone else is finding is there's significant barriers, and my upbringing is why. I was always questioned, how does it work? Why does this happen? And that curiosity really got me to communicate with Aboriginal people and listen and understand the history that Aboriginal people have encountered since white people have arrived, and the dispossession that's happened and what's occurred with that. And I suppose it was valuable to go to Ireland and listen to the Irish talking very similar about occupation of Ireland, which has happened 700 years, and how that was done, and think, geez, I've heard all this before. They've taken land, taken the children, banned language. That was everything that was done. I suppose the shock for me has been is that I'm 61, but a lot of this stuff was done by my parents and grandparents. Like, it only stopped when, in my time, Aboriginal people were considered as equal citizens, and there has been a lot of build-up and resentment from Aboriginal people, and there's a verbal history that Aboriginal people tell of slaughters and things. So it's a bit like if we were occupied, what would we ask? And we lost everything we own. We'd be asking to be given a chance.
Yeah.
And recognised some of the wrongdoing and people understand it did happen. I think unfortunately what has occurred with recent efforts is people have not had explained to them what the historical contents are. Most people are blind to it. Aboriginal people are fully alert to everything that was done. And they hold huge resentment. And I suppose I have met as many racist Aboriginal people as white people. We're not going to change the fringes. I think it's better that we as a nation understand that we can change that, and we can recognise it, and we can provide opportunities, and we can bring people along on the ride. And that's really what I've been trying to do is, there are amazing, outstanding Aboriginal people that are doing so much for their people. The one thing I always notice is no matter who they are or the position they are, Aboriginal parents are the same as European parents, and they want the best for their children. They want a better life for them. And so once you're able to build that trust, it's amazing what you can do and the outcomes you can get. And, they talk about closing the gap. That's in remote areas that you see that. It's not in metro areas. And so, you go to some of those communities where people have close links to the land. There's 80 and 90% unemployment. People have never had a job for 5 years, 5 generations, not 5 years, 5 generations.
Wow.
There's huge changes that have to occur for you to be able to enable people.
Yeah.
There's no fairy dust. You've really got to put the stepping stones very close together and put a lot of support around people to help them. But once you do, Aboriginal people connections are so strong. They turn around and they help all their family and people. So your wins are huge, and that gives you a very good feeling of making a difference.
It makes me want to cry. That's the difference. And it doesn't just happen. I know that you've been working on this for decades to get it to work, and acknowledging, hey, we can work together. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And meeting people where they're at, like whether you're building an Aboriginal community to work inside of your businesses or whether you're building your own business, you meet people where they're at.
Oh, and the honesty in Aboriginal communities too. I mean, they are brilliant at coming up with nicknames. Their contacts and their ability to be able to check you out is amazing. Their emotional intelligence is incredible. It probably comes from someone coming at you with a spear, whether you welcome you or, you got to read facial experiences. So Aboriginal people get that very early just from your facial experiences, what you are. There's an expression that Aboriginal people have calling humbugging, which is hitting people up. So it's great to have language you can use, like don't humbug me, because that changes you to the slave and me to the king, We're going to work together. But, my best experiences, and, I refer to one where I met a young Aboriginal guy on a mine site that was walking towards me and, I thought, this is interesting because I'm not as good as him as reading emotional intelligence. So he walked up and said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Oh, I'm terrible with names." And so he told me his name and he said, "The last time I saw you, you sacked me." And I said, "Well, you must have deserved it." And I said, "I did." And you give me a big lecture about responsibility. He said, "And I've been here at BHP for 5 years. I've got a car, I've got a wife, I've got a house, I've got 2 kids." And I was sort of expecting to get my nose rubbed in the ground for doubting him. He said, I just wanted to come over here and say thank you for giving me a go.
Wow.
And those are the sort of moments where all the hard things where you've tried to help someone and it hasn't worked or someone hasn't turned up, that just disappears. You just think, wow, I did something because I know there's a leader. The one thing you find with Aboriginal people that succeed, have a look at their kids. They are high achievers. They demand that, you've got to help your own people. You've got to lead us to a better place.
So it's like that internal culture that they build around supporting each other. And that's what makes the difference. And if you can build that, then you give them an opportunity and both parties win.
Yeah, and people say Aboriginal people, they don't want to work. Rubbish. The old saying around here used to be 40 years ago, works like a black fella. What was that about? That was about working to the bone because they never had any other grasp they had to grasp that opportunity. So work ethic is not an issue. For Aboriginal people that feel as though they've been oppressed, they want to work for you.
Yes.
You don't invite them to a job. They want to work with you and help you succeed, and in doing that, help them succeed. So it's a real question of, is your business one that an Aboriginal person want to work in or for? How are you going to make it welcoming?
Yes.
How are you going to provide that support? Because, the Aboriginal to make Australia a better place for our children, this is something we have to address. Yeah. And it's not a big problem. Yeah. Like in the scale of things, if we put our mind to it, it's very solvable.
Mm. So you've solved it and you've seen being able to make a difference.
Oh, I definitely haven't solved it.
Well, you've solved it in little ways along the way.
I've had small successes that have grown into bigger things, and I have built some trust. And that doesn't mean that I don't get tested. I definitely do, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't come without its challenges. I just want to do the right thing.
And that's the thing. That's the difference. I want to do what's right, that will work for them, will work for the business, work for Australia in general.
Well, it helps differentiate us as a business. And the funny thing was we started doing it before it was needed to be done. So we had a head start.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, mining companies needing access to other areas suddenly need to negotiate. And most Aboriginal people say we want jobs and commercial opportunities. They don't know how to do it. So having someone that can say, hey, do this, and now government's asking for this, because they realise, like everyone realises, welfare is not good for anyone.
Oh, it's terrible.
It makes you feel valueless. So welfare is not going to help this issue. People become welfare dependent. Doesn't matter what colour skin they are. That takes a lot of sort of realising that, no, you are valuable. You can stand on your own. There's ways to do this. So I think both government and others have realised there's not a solution in welfare and just saying take this money and sit over there. People need worth. They need to feel valuable in a community and that they're contributing to it. And we've got to give people pathways back. We've got to build trust. And that's really – and in remote areas, there's limited opportunities. So how do we get them back there?
Yeah. And it's a big thing. It's huge. So how do you maintain culture and because of the work that you're actually involved in, the whole safety, right? aspect is there, and you've got remote workplaces. How do you maintain the culture of safety in all aspects of that in your workforce in remote locations?
You're right. Safety is a major driver in our industry, and if you care about people, you don't want them hurt. The people have tried to document and legislate to it, but it's really getting people to own it and recognising that we look out for each other. And when people are putting themselves in harm's way, and stop and appreciate what could go wrong here that you need to do. I'm not sure anyone's got the absolute answer. It's one of those things, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You have to be doing it, and you need to be communicating and having leaders say it doesn't matter. If we're going to hurt someone, let's not do it. Let's understand the risks and understand how we're going to control them and how we're going to keep ourselves out of the line of fire, so that if anything does go wrong, we're not going to get hurt. Generally, in the DNA of any accidents I've heard, it's always someone doing someone a favour, or I was just trying to do this before. So it's that hyper-focused on helping someone or doing something. So it's trying to get that mindset that, hey, we need to all consider that we're working in a dangerous environment. What are they? Let's focus on those first. Yep. How do we manoeuvre our way through?
Because it's hard. Like, I just want to help you out, and me just anything means I actually don't know what I'm doing. So keep your paws out of this.
And even harder because, effectively legislation says that if you haven't got it documented, it didn't happen. So if it's an incident and you can't prove that you've gone through this. So inevitably, we're always trying to find easier ways to do things. People come up with apps. Apps are great, but
someone has to drive it.
Yeah, and you have to teach a boomer how to use it, and they're already frightened of it. And then you move outside the metro area where you haven't got phone reception. How do you drive it? And, and then other people have it. So it's the best intent, we introduce things without fully understanding the complexities that we create when we do it. And that's some of the challenges that we face all the time. And really, our business at the moment is going through a simplification. We've just put layer on layer on layer, and I've got people helping us at the moment. They went through our system. There's 278 documents related to safety. A lot of them are duplications. They believe we need 20.
Wow.
I'm with them.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately how we've just layered up. There's an incident, let's put in a new process, and that just makes a complexity that no one can understand.
Well, no one can understand it, neither can they follow it. And they do one thing and then it makes it wrong over here. And I like what you said earlier. It's like safety in any shape or form is all about, are you willing to be responsible for any action or non-action that you took? And if we can teach people that makes one of the biggest differences when we're leading. Can people take responsibility for what comes out of their mouth and how they swing their arms around?
Yeah, and a lot of our mining clients now are prioritising what are the big five, or what are the big ones that are going to kill you. Let's focus in on those. Let's put them up everywhere. Let's not have files full of
rubbish.
Effectively risks that are there but are highly unlikely to happen.
Yep.
Let's recognise them, but let's control the things that are big.
Let's talk about leading large civil and mining projects and evolving the capabilities that you've evolved over the years inside Essentials. And, from 8 machines and 11 staff to 150 people in a broad portfolio now of civil maintenance, what are the things that have driven some of what you did or didn't do? And what were your big game changers for you?
Yeah, well, we were in a regional area in Geraldton, and Geraldton, the wind blows from March until October. Other way around, from October to March. So there has been significant changes throughout the years. So that wind meant that you couldn't do, it generated dust. So things like subdivisions couldn't be done during that period. So we initially started as a plant hire business, and then another company came out of Perth and our client couldn't win any work. So, we need to change into doing work. And then really different things happened at different times of the year. So we would just change to do those different things. So I think our strategy was we do everything as long as it's in Geraldton. And so that wasn't a really good strategy to have.
Yeah.
What we did find was mining clients offered us longer term contracts, a relationship contract, but mining companies require people to be there 24/7 and to respond quickly and to be innovative and really to be self-sufficient. So we sort of learned there's certain clients that we needed for that. A number of years ago, we actually sat back and did a strategy assessment and realised that we're making 80% or more of our income from less than 20% of our clients.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were just burning huge amounts of effort and overheads on doing stuff that was of no real value to us. A lot of it was where we came from. So we had to give up a lot of what we were really familiar with. And then we really had to, what differentiates us? What are the stuff that we're good at? Where do we have a strategic advantage? And what provides us ongoing and profitable work? So those relationships, mining contracts, were really important for a balance, but it was difficult to have. They were difficult to get because we were in a coastal town, and if we wanted those, we need to relocate to Kalgoorlie. And we enjoyed where we lived. So we worked out that doing work, pre-work for miners was good. It sometimes worked into those long-term contracts, and we did ongoing work in regional areas was roadworks, and we were very good at finding resources that no one else could find. In regional WA, so that gave us advantage. And our passion for doing the right thing with Aboriginal people actually helped differentiate us. So we do regional roads and pavements and throughout Western Australia, and we do what we call mine site services. That's what we've rested our hat on. We've given up subdivisions and everything else.
So choosing strategic places. So if you talk to other leaders, like those strategic decisions grew the business. So one of the lessons that I learned from a few people, especially good strategists, was a great strategy is what you say no to.
That's exactly right.
It's like, what am I saying no to?
Yeah, you have to get really good at saying no.
Yeah.
And, I say don't chase the rabbits, just stay on the road.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a very successful businessman the other day, and he said he actually finds clients he really likes working for and really looks after them.
Yeah.
And he's highly successful. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's a good analogy. That he has just, if it's a really good client, he really likes working for them, he'll do anything for them.
Yeah.
It's not about the money, it's about really enjoying the relationship. And highly successful.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the baselines of how you lead as a leader. It's like, what are the relationships that mean something to you, and what will you do for the client that will make their life easier, better, and that you can add value to? Because if you can't, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I know that over the years in my own business, there have been people I've said no to or I've worked with and I've walked away from, and I went, I love you, but you go there, I'm over here.
Yeah. And I think in those relationships, within your organisation, they need to understand there's a special bond at the top. And those people will ring you if they need to talk to you, only if they need to talk to you, but it is a compelling warning something's not working in your organisation. You need to change, because what they believe your values are is not what they're seeing on the ground. And I think some people within organisations don't call the boss. That's just the best warning system you've got, and you should never close that down.
Yeah. Like being accessible as a leader is one of the most important things, so that they can ring you and go, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And then I'm on high alert in that moment, like what the heck's going on, that they're wanting to talk to me.
That's
even
it.
Though.
But a lot of times it's the last warning too.
Yes. And it's also, I remember years ago with a fantastic client that we had, and we'd made several errors. They were small, but they were irritating. And this gorgeous guy said to me, Jennifer, he said, I've been hanging out with you guys for a decade. Enough now. What's going on? And I went, hey, we're in trouble. And I think that those are the conversations that you actually crave, because if someone can tell you, you can do something about it. Otherwise, you're just wandering along going, everything's cool, when it's actually not. Let's talk about your own personal leadership philosophy, from a mechanic to a CEO mindset. Like, you began as a heavy-duty mechanic, which is hands-on, diagnostic. How are those approaches to looking at the business and the issues still useful to you today as you run a $100 million business?
It's amazing the amount of mechanics that I find at top of mine sites, mining operations and in senior positions. I think that diagnostic of there's a lot of sort of different things happening here, and eliminating what it can't be.
Yes.
Is a very helpful tool to have. I have found that my family having to overcome major obstacles by being prepared to take a risk has been really helpful. And I think a lot of people fear failure and fear taking the risk, and it stops them from being highly successful. You know, the amount of people that have had the idea and communicated it, and you think, well, why aren't you doing it? Like, that's a great idea. I think recognising those and you know, people are very good as sitting on the fence and commentating about it'll never work and they'll fail and they'll do that. And, you know, there's thousands of people that are prepared to sit in the stand, you know, and not have a go. Whereas for want of going down there and making a goose of yourself and, you know, having to admit defeat, that seems to be, that fear stops them doing unbelievable things. I suppose that not for me, if I don't understand, I'm prepared to ask.
Yeah.
You know, I'm prepared to say I don't know, and to go and seek advice and to listen to it. My wife says that I'm very good at taking criticism. Like, I can get punched in the face with a criticism and I'll say, oh, yeah, rightio, I didn't, you know. I think if people are prepared to, even in anger, to give you an example, you should listen, because it's very hard to look in the mirror and get an accurate reflection. But that's their perception, and that's what you're dealing with. You know, and to be able to communicate with them, they've got to respect you. And if you haven't got that, you know, what is it that they're seeing that you're not seeing?
Yeah.
So So I suppose for me, I coached a football side. I also realised pretty early on in that, gee, we're not all the same. We don't all tick the same, you know. So to communicate well, you've got to understand how other people tick and communicate in that language for them to be able to understand it and to want to follow you because they feel this person gets me and they've got my best interests in heart. And I think as you move up, what you suddenly realise, it's less and less about you and more about everyone else around you and how you can make them look good. And I think it actually, the more you can sort of help people and sort of say, here's a trick, why don't you do this, and let them look good at it, I think that sort of builds that, wow, you know, I was made to look good there because this person, that continues to build the trust. So I definitely don't think I am the fountain of wisdom on leadership because I think you learn every day. And, you know,
So I have a couple of questions just to wrap up. So future, you know, outlook and advice. So what do you think are the biggest opportunities and where do you see the next decade's growth coming from in state road upgrades, critical mineral projects and renewable energy infrastructure? Where do you think the opportunities are going to be?
Well, in Western Australia, some of the world's best natural infrastructure is actually between Cataby and Carnarvon.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Most of the infrastructure in Western Australia is in the southwest. So, you know, how do people, what's required to move to those directions to be able to take effect of that? And I think downstream fuels and locating them close to power sources and what have you must mean that at some point, you know, I think it's 93% of the West Australian population lives in 7% of the landmass, which is in the southwest. So it's going to be important to move just outside of this lower southwest, and how do we develop those communities and to put that infrastructure. The critical minerals, all I know out there, the more people look, the more they find. But they've generally, all of the mines are alongside developed roads. So it appears to be that they develop the road and then someone goes out there because it's easy to get there and explores alongside it and finds critical minerals. So I think the developing of those roads, there's still a lot to do in those areas. For me, you know, I'm hoping the next phase in this is how do we just stop exporting all this overseas? How do we build stuff locally? How do we do that?
How we bring manufacture back here?
Yeah, and that's a big question.
I think it's a huge question. What about tech? Tech's on the horizon. Yeah, and autonomous haulage, remote monitoring, all that kind of stuff. Where do you see that going in the next decade or so?
The interesting for me is just that autonomous is fairly well advanced in our industry. So is machine control. The bit we're trying to get our head around is AI and how's that work. And because they're sort of saying now, you know, we can put a contract into and get advice from AI as to what's the variation and how can we interpret the contract. The question then is, well, won't the clients have that? And won't the AIs be fighting amongst themselves? And how's that work?
And also what fed the AI and what is, you know, like we use AI inside of and it's trained to our data. And cutting out the outside data has been part of Jay's job, is to actually go, no. We only want to know what integrity and values has to say about this, because otherwise it dilutes and also incorrect information gets in there. So it's not all that smart.
And it's interesting, the autonomous fleets they put into mine sites, there's nearly as many techs in Perth
Yes.
operating those machines as there used to be drivers in there. It's just improved the productivity.
So it's changing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So what would be your counsel to younger entrepreneurs standing in the shoes of the 22-year-old, stepping onto a mine site for the first time, and much like you did, a single piece of advice that you would give about leadership in tough environments? So talk to my audience. Tell them what your sage words of wisdom.
Don't listen to me.
No.
Resilience is key. You really need to be prepared to fall down and stand back up and to learn. Don't make the same mistakes every time. Work out what you're really good at and specialise on that. Protect your brand, your trust. And do something you really enjoy, because you spend a lot of time doing it. So, if you're not enjoying it, find something that you really love doing, because it's that passion that drives you forward. And if you haven't got that, it's just hard work.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you for being on my podcast. Well, that wraps up today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation and want to keep the momentum going, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss the latest insights and stories from extraordinary leaders. We appreciate you tuning in and can't wait to share more with you soon. Thanks for listening.